All right, let's get into the Bermuda Championship a little bit, and we're going to make our ultimate DFS lineup in a few minutes here. But these are the kind of weeks you and I talk about it all the time. That okay, we don't have the star power of the last 2 weeks, and only one player going from the Zozo to Bermuda, and that's the defending champion Brendan Todd. But you look at it, and a lot of really good young players, a lot of intriguing stories. Let's take a look at the top tier. For the second time in a month, a guy with no PGA Tour status is the favorite in the field in Will Zalatoris. Do you think that's the right number? Is he the right favorite to have this week?
I think he's probably the most likely to win. I don't know if I'd say he's in a matchup, I wouldn't have him as the favorite, but I think he's probably got the best win equity. So I do think it's right. I love these weeks. I think there's a lot of value these weeks. And, the guy, I guess there's two guys I think are worth mentioning. Brendan Todd certainly has played the best golf, I guess. I mean, Zalatoris has just destroyed the Corn Ferry. But if you look at the calendar year, last season, Brendan Todd had a great year. What do you think? Do you think no?
Yeah, the one point I'll make on Todd is that he's been very streaky. So last year, he was coming off nothing. He was in golf purgatory, won this tournament last year, won the Mayakoba 2 weeks later, and nearly won the RSM the week after that.
Yeah.
And then sort of fell off the pace. We didn't see anything from him until this past summer, when all of a sudden it seemed like he was in the lead or near the lead every single event, and then just sort of blew up on Sunday every single week, but he was at least there. Well, over the last two events, Todd has not finished in the top 40. And so I think he's one of these guys that's a momentum player, and the momentum is not there right now. Now, maybe it's a nice little boost for him to think of himself as not just the defending champion, but one of the best players in the field, which he wasn't necessarily the last couple of weeks. But I still, honestly, if there's one fade for me this week, it's Brendan Todd.
Okay, I'm not on Brendan Todd. My favorite play in this week, who's the opposite of those two, I don't think he has the most win equity, but I'd take him in a matchup versus anyone, is Harold Varner. So
yeah, I knew that.
I'm always on Harold Varner. He's amazing off the tee, super consistent, doesn't putt at the best, but, I mean, he's been really, really good. He's 22-1 on BetMGM. And then we get to a lot of guys that we really like. I want to talk about Emiliano Grillo and Aaron Wise, but who do you like in this top tier?
Okay, so if I could have guessed that you were going Varner, you can guess that I am going
Doc Redman.
There you go. That's my guy. And I almost didn't do it this week just because I feel like I've talked about him so much, but this is right up his alley. This is it. And I would, by the way, I look at corollary events and courses being the Sanderson Farms and even more so the Corrales Punta Cana event. So a lot of the guys that I'm going to mention over the next few minutes are guys who played well in those events, and Doc is certainly among them. Putts well on Bermuda grass, which, by the way, they have Bermuda grass and Bermuda greens in Bermuda, in case anyone out there was wondering and they weren't sure about that. So they are on Bermuda this week in Bermuda. And, I think Doc Redman's a great play. He is probably my favorite outright. I've got one in the mid-tier that at his number could be maybe even more of a favorite, but I really like Doc Redman. If you were giving me just sort of one guy to take at any number, Doc's my guy this week.
Okay, I like that. Aaron Wise, crazy, is at the top of the board. The guy's cost me more money than anyone, but starting to play some good golf, big pedigree.
Oh, you're jumping back on Wise, huh?
I mean, not necessarily in betting, but for DFS, I mean, I think Aaron Wise, you have to consider a birdie-making machine, starting to play better, has done well in these weaker fields. Then Emiliano Grillo, I mean, talk about a guy who just has to be so frustrated when he gets on the greens. Just imagine hitting it as pure as Grillo does and just like getting beat by the guy who's like slapping it around the trees, like not hitting it nearly as cleanly, and then like draining putts, and you're just missing 8 to 10 footers over and over and over again. That's
you and I have talked about this. We like looking at the analytics and like looking at the guys who are the best ball strikers and think that's more predictive than putting, which the numbers show that's absolutely true. That said, when you do that and it comes up with Emiliano Grillo and you throw him in some DFS lineups and you sit there and watch him make pars after having birdie putts from 6 feet away every hole, all of a sudden it starts to get a little frustrating after a while.
Yeah, and you're banking on putting regression, and the problem for Emiliano Grillo is the putting regression just really has never come.
Yeah.
2020, 192nd in strokes gained putting, losing 0.9 strokes putting. 2019, 185th, losing 0.633 strokes gained putting. 2018, he had a decent year putting. The year before that, real bad, 142nd, losing a bunch of strokes putting. So it's tough. He had the 1 year where he was actually 10th in putting. That was 2018. Not as many rounds. Lucky. So it's possible for him to putt well, but the last 2 years he's basically been right there as like the worst putter on tour. So
of that top tier, I don't mind Denny McCarthy, who's been the best putter on
go
tour
the
in the last
opposite.
2 seasons.
I mean,
can we throw them together? So can we sort of have a Griot McCarthy scramble and just go, shooting 58s every day?
If you let Griot get to the green and McCarthy putt, I think that player is probably as good, or maybe right there with Jon Rahm. I mean, like literally, like right there with Jon Rahm. Seriously,
I would love to see that.
We're
excited for the match
Rahm?
coming up. Phil and Charles Barkley. That's going to be fun, and we got Curry and Manning in there. That's going to be cool. This is for the golf nerds only, but Jon Rahm or Justin Thomas or Bryson or whoever you want to do playing by themselves against Griot hitting his ball to the green and then McCarthy hitting every putt. I'd pay $20 for the pay-per-view of that event.
Dude, Teeter Green, Griot in 2019, 15th. 2020, 24th. I mean, so far this year, he's right up there. I mean, he is, and you talk about his approach game, I mean, he is as good of a ball striker. And McCarthy is out there because he's the best putter. I mean, McCarthy's starting to play some good golf, but leading the tour in strokes gained putting 2 years in a row, that is not easy to do. He is the best putter out there. So that would be really interesting. And I like both those guys. I mean, you can make arguments for them. It's just all about value. And I think Griot has a lot of value. And I'll transition to kind of the top of the mid-tier, maybe the bottom of this tier. Another guy I'm definitely on is Luke List, who I think is playing some really, really good golf. Struggles with the putter too, but he's got some serious firepower. And, these are the type of the fields where I think he goes out there and he's like, I can beat all these guys.
I could have told all our listeners out there, we could have done this to each other, but I knew you had Varner. I knew you had Wise. I knew you had List this week. I mean, it's just I knew exactly where you were going.
There's another guy that I have in the mid-tier that you'll know I'll like. There's a couple guys.
Bud Cauley's not playing this week.
There's a guy we always talk about that I like.
Jonathan Vegas.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, I got some mid-tier guys for you. These guys maybe sort of lower upper tier.
Let me see if I can guess your favorite play.
Oh, yeah. I've got one play. I don't think you're going to be able to guess this. And we really haven't talked about why he's one of my favorite plays.
Is it Sue or Suh?
I like him. He's on the list. Justin Suh. Love for top 20s, maybe top 10s this week. All right. Before you even start to guess, I'm going to point this out. So on Thursday, and granted, we're taping this Monday night, and so the forecast can change. We all get that. But as of right now, Thursday, a little breeze coming through, about 13 miles an hour, the gust. By Friday, and this is going to be very important for DFS purposes as well as betting, but increasing winds, which tells me that maybe late Thursday, early Friday draw is going to be a huge advantage. But increasing wind on Friday, gusting to over 30 miles an hour. Saturday, 24. Sunday, up over 30 once again. And so I'm looking for a guy who's a good wind player, and I may have a guy who you put Tiger in this equation, you put Gary Woodland in this equation, but the guy that I like perhaps more than anybody else in this field might have the best stinger of anybody in professional golf.
I should be able to get this. I was thinking Russell Knox before you were saying all that stuff. Best stinger. How do I not know this? I mean, Stenson keeps the ball low, but I don't think
he does. But go on YouTube at some point. This is a little under the radar, I guess. But if you go on YouTube and type in Scott Stallings stinger.
Oh, I have seen that. I like that.
He can rip it. He keeps it a yard above ground.
Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
Just absolutely rips it to the point where I believe Tiger at some point commented on one of his videos dude, that was awesome. And Tiger is sort of the purveyor of the stinger. So Scott Stallings, let the wind blow. He's my guy in the wind. I will tell you that I think he's 45 to 50 to 1. I found him somewhere at 70 to 1, which I absolutely smashed already. So
I love that. Line shopping, baby. And that's a really sharp point. The betting, everything, if there is a huge, and again, we're recording Monday night. If there's a weather draw, that nothing gets me more excited than a weather draw for golf. That's top of the board.
We don't have the tee times as the time we're recording right now. They should be out Tuesday afternoon-ish probably, but take a very good look at those and take a very good look at the forecast and see who might have the advantage in there. A couple other mid-tier guys. I think Christopher Ventura, if you look at him, every other start he plays really well, and he's back on that every other start. The last one wasn't great, so I like Ventura. And Patrick Rogers, it seems like he's undervalued in the marketplace, undervalued in DFS, and I'm waiting for him to pop a little bit. Anybody in this lower tier really strike you, Pete, as a guy that you're looking at this week?
Hudson Swafford's kind of in the mid-tier, someone worth bringing up. One already. Keith Mitchell has played his best golf on Bermuda. High variance, not playing his best golf, but I mean, again, huge firepower. A lot of this is just going to come down to who gets the good side of the draw. So those are guys that I'm definitely looking at. As you start to get down, it gets tricky. I mean, you could fire on like Will Gordon on the upside thing too. He hasn't been playing his best, but we've seen some really good golf out of him.
Really depressed value right now. I mean, he's way down there.
So when you start looking at these bottom guys, it's like you kind of go for that. I mean, I was all over Von Taylor for a stretch. I don't know if I can pull the trigger. I'm waiting for Jamie Lovemark to have that one good week since all of the friends of the pod are always talking him up. But yeah, it gets a little tricky because you start getting into these names and there's not – I like this like mid-tier, bottom mid-tier a ton. And then as you get into the long shots, I'm probably going to be staying away from most of those guys.
I'm going to give you 4 names that are lower priced. Hank Lebiosa. I believe it's pronounced Lebiosa. Someone can tweet me and tell me if I'm doing that wrong. There's a D in there, but I believe it's an S sound. Hank Lebiosa was 3rd at this tournament last year in the inaugural Bermuda Championship. And at both the Corrales and I believe the Sanderson, like I said, correlating events, played pretty well just recently. So I like him. Doug Gim was a really good player coming out of Texas. And is sort of struggled just a little bit to get his footing, but some recent results really strong. Tyler Mccumber is an all-or-nothing type of guy. And so you look at Tyler Mccumber and you say, okay, he was 2nd at the Corrales and 6th at the Sanderson, but it was sandwiched by a couple of finishes where he missed the cut by a mile. So tread carefully. There is a low floor, but a potentially high ceiling for Mccumber. And then Josh Teeter. Josh Teeter, if he gets that putter, even just average, he's a really good ball striker at a really low price if you're looking to just sort of slide somebody in that lineup. If you really like Zalatoris and a couple other guys that are higher priced, then look at Josh Teeter maybe towards the bottom of that.
All right. I like those names. Gim in particular, was someone I almost brought up too. But and I'll throw out one name that just for the fun of it, just if you want to have fun. The Rat is 150 to 1. Affy Barn Rat. I don't know if he's playing well enough to be a real genuine play, but if he's in this field, we got to at least shout him out. He's one of our podcast favorites. But I'm excited to build a DFS lineup. I think there's a ton of directions to go, and I love these weeks on DraftKings.